quick. Oh, there we go. Excellent. I see we're up. We got people in the chat. How's everyone doing today? Exciting. I have to admit, I'm a little pooped today, actually. Okay. Mr. Cole's in the house. Dave, nice to see you. Franco, Mr. Williams, Chris Powers. Okay. So, just curious, raise a hand in the chat. Like, how many of you have installed Sonoma? How many took the dive already? I know a couple of you have. I have sound. Oh, thank you. I didn't even ask. I forgot to ask about the sound. I also think I fixed some of the technical issues a little bit. Although my little thing here, Sonoma broke my font. Like, I don't know, it's using Helvetica now. I can't use my operator font in the little banner that's right below me right now. Not sure what happened there. I'll have to email Wirecast. I can't use a custom font in Sonoma. In just in that app. But anyway, one little casualty of my Sonoma upgrade that I noticed as I was playing around this morning. Matt hasn't upgraded yet. Dave has. Franco upgraded one. Mr. Cole has not. Okay, so kind of got a grab bag of who's upgraded and who hasn't. I do have a new Mac Studio M2, and I did upgrade it first thing yesterday. And yes, I had I'll be honest, the upgrade actually was smooth. I was like, woohoo, it was actually, and it was really quick. Normally it seems like OS upgrades take a long time, but it was relatively quick. I did start it and kind of go off, and I think I had lunch or something. And by the time I got back, it was done. So pretty cool. That was nice. And for the most part, everything was nice. The new default like wallpaper is hideous. Okay, I think. I don't know. I'm not gonna do a full blown like Sonoma review here, but a couple things here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. A couple things that I noticed that I just did not like at all. First is the desktop. As you notice, I don't have the default desktop. I went back to, I think this was Monterey or something like that. But if we look at the wallpaper, the default desktop is actually the Sonoma Horizon. And one thing that threw me for a loop, here, I'll just go ahead and change it to that. I use dark mode. Okay, for those of you that use dark mode, which kind of drove me nuts is the menu bar now reacts to your desktop wallpaper regardless of your system settings. So even though I'm in dark mode, the default wallpaper, it was making my menu bar white, and I was like, what the heck's going on? And after a while, I was just playing around and realized when I changed to wallpaper, all of a sudden my menu bar got dark. Okay, so I did move, and then if you like the dynamic wallpapers, I do think they're nice. I liked the Monterey one, and I did like Ventura as well. But this one for Sonoma is, I can't get on board with this one. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to do the rolling green hills of Sonoma with, maybe the sunset sky colors. It's hideous. Sorry. These colors are absolutely just make me want to puke. Okay. So I went back to the Monterey. Yeah, I like, and it works great in dark mode. Like, I think with the dark purples, with the light, kind of the fluorescent purple accents on the, it's nice. I like it. So I went back to Monterey. Call me old school. There are a ton of new wallpaper and screensavers though, if you want to play around with those. But I like to keep it simple, sticking with the Monterey one. Another thing that was driving me nuts, really quick, is there is a setting now. Shoot, I think it was expose. Let me find a setting here. Okay. This was driving me nuts. So there's this new setting here under desktop and stage manager. by default, click wallpaper to reveal desktop as always. And when you click your desktop, it 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 shows your desktop. That was driving me bonkers. So yeah, I changed it to, luckily they have a setting for that. Change that to only in Stage Manager, and now you can click on your desktop, and it doesn't do that. So that was annoying. So anyway, there you go. Okay. Let's dive in. Again, I did play around with the widgets as well. You know, there are the whole new widgets. I'm wondering, yeah, the new widgets where you can add widgets. I have them on my second display. I love the photos widget, right? This guy right here, and you can kind of, you know, have your photos widget on your desktop now. I love that feature on iPhone. I think it's amazing. Not sure I actually love it on desktop though, but we'll see. Okay. So I spent most of yesterday playing around with, obviously I use Safari developer tools, right? And yeah, so Safari developer tools. And so most years, right, when we get a new operating system, to be honest, most web developers that we're kind of like forgotten about, right? I mean, to be honest with you, from the developers tool perspective, right? Maybe we'll get a new checkbox or something like that in the dev inspector, or, you know, small incremental things here or there. But this year there was quite a bit of changes in the developer tool world for web developers. And some things I think are pretty awesome. And one thing in particular, um, while I was able to get it working yesterday, um, makes me very sad. Okay, so we'll dive into that, and we're gonna learn about some of the new developer tools. First things first is look at this. We have the Weaverspace community. Boom! Look at that. I mean, it's in a dedicated web app. How cool is that, right? So we now have. I know there's been third-party apps for forever that allowed us to basically create, you know, dedicated apps on websites, but it is nice having it baked into the operating system now. It's super easy to do. Let's show you how we can do that. So let's go ahead and let's go to let's go to Weaverspace. It's fine. All right. So this is the Weaverspace. We'll go to the home page. Okay. And there's a couple ways to do it. Via the share menu is pretty easy. So you probably have the share menu on your dock. I think you do it from the file menu too. File. Add to dock. Yeah, file, add to dock. Okay. But yeah, share menu on the site. You can go ahead and say add to dock. And at this point, you can then, it'll get like if the website has meta tags with PNGs like Weaverspace obviously does. Look at that, right? So Weaverspace, you can customize the name of the app. You can also customize the starting URL. Actually, instead of the stacks, I want to go to the home page. Okay. And super simple. Now we just go ahead and say add. And what that's done here is it's added Weaverspace to my dock. And voila, I now have a Weaverspace as an app, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure I mean, I'd be honored if you put Weaverspace in your dock in my website, but you know, I think having it for like the community, it makes perfect sense for me. I'm in it every day, all day long, right? So yeah, I think it's very convenient. Now, eventually, there are some interesting features because of this, right? So if you're using my PWA stack, your sites can actually have some cool. If you notice, like on Weaverspace, I don't have like the toolbar doesn't match up top, right? The color, it's kind of black, but over here it actually does match the website background. Okay. It would be nice actually if we tweaked it so it matched the search bar instead of the website background. Maybe I'll talk to Better Mode about that. But anyway, yeah, if you have my PWA stack, you can actually do that, and you can like customize the menu bar color, and exciting thing is like you can customize the start page, you can customize a bunch of the stuff. Obviously, the default name, the default icon, the default URL. That those things can be overridden by the end user when they create it, but you can suggest all those things. But then we can start having notifications, and obviously Sonoma and all of this just shipped. But if you have my PWA stack, we can start doing potentially some push notifications. Obviously, that requires some sort of external service that supports push notifications. But yeah, look forward to in the future as I play around with that. We can definitely get that going, and it will require my PWA stack, or you can hand code a PWA yourself. But it will require something like of that along those lines. But yeah, it'll be exciting. So imagine we can get push notifications for the community and other things, which would be pretty exciting. Okay, so that has to do. If you go to settings, actually, so here are some other things I've noticed. If you just open up the settings for your new web app, right? You can rename the icon. You can or rename the app, change the application URL, change the icon. Do you want to show navigation controls? Do you want to show color in the title bar? And then in privacy, you can actually have custom things in terms of privacy settings for this, right? So inside the app, you can actually, enable or disable things just for this app. So maybe you want to create a dedicated one for Facebook that's a little bit more locked down or something like that, right? So there we go. And also all the cache data is centralized within the app as well. So you can clear all your website data here, and it won't be cleared like your entire browser history. Pretty cool. Show how apps do not work, Joe. I'm not sure what you mean, Mr. Cole. Okay. Not sure what you meant by that, but let's go ahead and oh, and I will show you where they actually live as well. So if we go ahead and say show in Finder, okay, they actually install in the applications folder. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove that. Oh, and let's go ahead and I forgot to quit it. Remove from the dock. Okay. Next up, so now we're in Safari. Okay, what are some other cool things that we have for web developers? So another new feature that they've added is this ability to have something called like a profile, basically. Okay, and hold on, where is my? Oh, interesting. Something changed. All right, so inside here we can now have something called profiles. Okay, and here I have a developer profile. I haven't taken the time to really customize these. Okay, but you can have profiles now in your browser. So here, let's say I have a me, which is like maybe personal stuff, and then when I'm in developer mode, I can have different stuff. Okay. So here I just kind of made it purple. It's using kind of an obnoxious background a little bit. But what's cool is, so let's go ahead and add a new tab in my personal. This was my default view for a long time, right? So basically you can have all your favorites here, and then I kind of can quickly access my personal or favorite websites here. And obviously because we only had one profile before, it was kind of mixed. Like some of these things are not work related. I think I have some kids school stuff. Like here's QuickBooks, here's some Synology stuff, right? Plex, right? So you can have websites here that necessarily aren't for work, but now I can keep these separate, right? So I can have, when I open up a developer web browser, okay, or my developer profile, I can have a different set of things here. I can actually I can customize this entire home screen if I wanted, right? If you didn't know how to do that, you could do that from the bottom here. So if you don't want like a frequently visited or share with you or privacy report or any of these Siri reading lists and all this stuff, right? If you don't want the background image, oh, actually that background image that's actually much nicer. Okay, so there we go. Like now I can have my own thing. Now, how can we add let's go ahead and let's add community onto here. All right, let's add. Now, I do have Weaver Space as a dedicated app, but let's just show you what we can do here. So here I have the community, and if you notice, I'm not logged in. Okay, but if I go to the community over here, this was my traditional login, right? This was always been my browser. So I'm already logged in because I've logged in under this profile. But if you look on my developer profile, I'm actually not logged in. And that's because Safari keeps all the data between the two modes separate. And you can kind of see that I made developer. It's kind of purple up here on the toolbar. So this is my I'm in developer mode, right? So I'm actually not logged in right now. But obviously, if I were to log in, then it would stay logged in. Now, if I go ahead and let's add this bookmark. Let's go ahead and say add bookmark, and let's go ahead and add it to dev. Okay, and let's just call it Weaver Space Community, or let's call it WS so it's shorter. And I'm going to say, all right. So now, if I go ahead and so when you create a new profile, which I'll show you in a second, it asks you like to dedicate a favorites folder just for that, right? So I dedicated a dev folder in my bookmarks folder so that whenever I add anything to it, it shows up here in my favorites. So when I have the start page set as my browser home, and when I go ahead and start a new tab, I can see all my frequently visited sites here, so that I can quickly go back to them. Okay, it's pretty cool. Now, also one thing that has bothered me for years is obviously when I'm working on web stuff, and helping you guys with things, I'm constantly like emptying browser cache and all that stuff. And while I haven't, again, I just installed all this yesterday, so over time we'll see, but it should keep your cache completely separate as well. What that means is if I erase the cache or empty the cache on developer side, on my personal side, it's not going to empty my cache. So it's not going to log me out of my bank or remove any other stuff that is useful that I might want to have cached when I'm just doing everyday browsing for myself, right? So it's kind of cool that I can kind of have a browser that is in like developer mode, right? I don't need to be worried about emptying the cache because anything that while I'm in developer mode should only be there for work anyway. So I don't want cache. So empty it all out and all that stuff. So it's really nice having this kind of separation of church and state, I guess. You know what I mean? So yeah, pretty cool. All right, how do you create these? So inside Safari preferences, you can go to profiles, and by default, it actually shows you, you can create a first profile. So inside Safari preferences, there's a new tab called profiles. And by default, you'll have just one. You'll notice I created one called dev. Here's where you can create your favorites folder. So I have a custom favorites folder for dev. You can give it a custom icon, custom color. You can even enable and disable extensions based on that, which is really cool. Because I know a lot of you love extensions such as like Honey or things like that, which are like shopping ones. And they are horrible. They break all kinds of websites. So now what you can do is you can have in your developer mode, maybe turn those things off because you might not need them. So that's a pretty cool idea there. I like how you can enable and disable extensions based off that. So like I can turn off my my one blocker browser extensions when I'm in developer mode if I want. And we'll see how it works out. I might do that. I don't know yet. Okay, we'll will work with it. It's all new right now, but the possibilities are here, and I do like it. You can also customize, what new window or new tabs open up for each profile. Okay, while we're in preferences, you'll notice that there are some new developer and feature flag preference panes or new ones. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff in here in developer mode. I haven't dove through all of them. This feature flags one's interesting. It allows you to turn on and off. Prior, all of this stuff was like buried inside the develop menu. Okay, which the develop menu actually got a nice little overhaul too, which we'll look at in a second. And but yeah, so a lot of these were buried under the develop menu under this. There was like a huge menu that was like a mile long that you could turn these things on and off. So it's nice. It's nice that these are actually flags. Ultimately, I'll have to be honest. Like I don't really go and enable or disable these feature flags. What they are, okay, is they're features that are under development that you can enable and disable and then play with those features. This is probably like maybe a new CSS feature. Okay, like for example, you'll see this top one right here is CSS masonry layout. They are playing around with native CSS masonry layouts. They're under development, and if you want to play with them, you can turn it on, and then you can customize and code that CSS, and it should work, right? But obviously, these are all experimental features, so you definitely don't want to have something enabled if you don't need to. All these ones that are on by default are stable features. Some of them aren't actually shipped by default to the average person that doesn't have developer mode turned on, right? So if you enable developer mode, you'll have things such as CSS subgrid and stuff like that enabled by default, because they are pretty much like the next features that are coming to CSS and JavaScript or whatever. Okay, so that's kind of interesting if you want to play around with some of this stuff. But I'll be honest, I hardly ever do. In developer, I think a lot of these used to be a part of the develop menu as well. But let's see if there's anything. Oh, this one's nice. You can just disable cross-origin restrictions. I use that all the time. I have to disable that sometimes, especially if I'm, debugging a site in preview, especially. Yeah, sometimes I do turn that on and off. Don't know if it's something I want on or off all the time, though. I don't know. So yeah, I would probably turn that off or on. I wonder if it's still it used to be in the develop menu, and it's not there anymore, which is interesting. It was kind of nice to have it just quickly there to turn it on and off really quick. Interesting. Something I didn't notice yesterday. Okay, so that is, again, separation of your profiles, right? So you can have a new developer profile in Safari. Okay, what is next? And next is, so first off, let's go ahead and we'll see develop. Okay, so you'll notice here in develop menu, I do actually have my phone. I was able to get my phone connected to Wirecast today. So we can actually go ahead and look at my phone. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show my desktop and my phone at the same time. And then we're going to, let's shrink this screen a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now you guys should be seeing my phone and my desktop. Okay. Do you see the develop? Yes, you do see the, it's a little cut off. You don't see the menu bar, but you see the menu. Okay. So in the develop menu now, you'll notice because I have my iPhone connected via USB on my or on my Mac Studio here, I can actually inspect things. And if let's go ahead and open up Safari. Okay, and here, let's go to Weaver Space. You'll notice now that I opened up Safari, I actually can start inspecting websites. Okay, and if I click, you'll notice as you start clicking through the websites, this one was highlighted. You notice the iPhone, it's all blue right now because I clicked on that. So let's open that. And what that will do is that will open up the developer inspector for my iPhone. Okay, so now I'm on the iPhone. If I go ahead and tap this little tap target here, okay, look where my mouse is, the little target, and then I can tap on a particular element, right, on my phone. So I actually tapped on that on my phone. That's how you kind of can inspect a specific element. And I can go ahead and use this inspector just like I would on my desktop. But as you notice, you can see my actual iPhone on the left. You can see it actually changing colors as I move and select different things in the DOM. Okay. Obviously, none of this isn't new in iOS 17. The only reason I'm kind of showing this is because they've kind of made the menu a little bit nicer, right? So this menu, you can kind of see this is the iPhone. You can see the actual iOS version running, right? And you can see all the various tabs. And you can also see service workers, okay, which has something to do with PWAs. If you're using, obviously, Weaverspace does have some service workers installed, which is kind of some of the power behind my PWA stack, okay? So there we go. New develop menu. Okay, and hopefully maybe you learned you didn't know you can inspect your iPhone. Okay, websites on your iPhone. And why would you want to inspect a website on your actual physical iPhone versus Safari? Well, depending on what it is, maybe you want to debug something in Safari on your phone. Maybe it's only having an issue on your phone or something like that, right? But there are other ways, okay, that don't require that you actually have your phone attached to your Mac. Okay, so let's look at some of those. Let me see if there are any questions. Okay, no new questions yet. I just want to see, does this other view work? Yeah, now you can see me and my phone. Cool. I got that working because remember it wasn't working last week. So, okay, let's head back to just the desktop. Let's look at some other new features inside the developer inspector. Okay, so if you didn't know, you can do same commands. Option Command I is how I always open and close the developer inspector. It's just inspect element, right? Option Command I. It's ingrained in my fingers. Okay, you can still go ahead and right click and say inspect element. You can also go to the develop menu and say, show, well, it would say show web inspector, right? So there's all kinds of ways of opening it. I prefer Option Command I on the keyboard. That's how I do it. So unless I'm inspecting, like I know I want to inspect this header, then I can right click on that header and say inspect element, and voila, takes me right to it. Okay. So what is some new cool stuff in the inspector? There are some new tools that we have available to us. Let me go ahead and now that I'm not showing my phone, I can make this a little bit bigger too. Okay, so inside the developer inspector, there's probably a lot of here. It's been a while since I've done an in-depth view of the developer inspector. Maybe we can kind of go through some of it. First off, there's a ruler. That's always been there, right? But yeah, I guess it's kind of nice. You can kind of overlay a ruler on top of your web page, and you'll see that the ruler always starts at 0, 0 at the very top of the web page, and as you scroll, it'll go all the way down. So it's kind of an interesting way to just kind of see how tall things are and whatnot. Okay. Actually, you know what would be interesting is if they like integrated it like into, like if I were to inspect this element, like if the rulers changed to kind of show that element, that could be interesting, but whatever. All right. I digress. So you can turn that on or off. Now a lot of people don't know. I think I did this for my printer stack in my video for that, helping you debug printing options. You can go ahead and click printer, and this will show you what the website will look like when it's printed. Okay. If you notice here, we have the URLs. That's actually my printer stack doing that for us. So my printer stack goes ahead and because obviously links you don't know where a link goes to when you print a document. So one of my features in my printer stack is it will actually go ahead and put the URL in there for us, which is kind of cool. Okay. So if you want to see what your website will most likely look like when you print, you can use this little doodad there, which is interesting. Okay, next up, this is a new one. This is new to Sonoma, and it has to do with helping us debug some more advanced things. Okay, for right now, a lot of us is, so right now my system is set to dark mode, but if I wanted to force light mode, okay, currently Weaverspace doesn't have any logic or any swatches that actually change the site based on light or dark mode. Okay, but if you did have a site that did customize the colors or schemes, because you can do that with Foundation 6, you can actually customize it based on the user's system preferences. So if you want to force a particular color scheme for a website while you're testing, you can do that now with this little accessibility tool. Another thing is, if you want to, there are some accessible features that allow people to reduce motion. Okay, so a lot of times there are some people that don't like certain motion, and some stacks will actually maybe turn off some animations and stuff like that if reduce motion is set to on. Okay, so if we have reduced motion set to on, actually what you noticed, if you noticed this slide right here, let's go back. If you notice this, because the user has, now again, I'm only changing that for this particular session. I don't have it set in my system-wide accessibility features. Okay, but I have reduced motion set to on. And if you notice that these animations, a lot of the animations here no longer animate. They just kind of display. That's done on purpose, right? That is because this user has requested reduced animation. Maybe it gives them some sensory overload or whatnot. So you can actually turn on reduced animation, kind of see how your website functions with that. Let's go ahead and set that to be my system setting. And same thing with reduced contrast. I'll admit, I don't necessarily code to this setting much myself yet. But a user, you can actually increase the contrast or decrease contrast based on a system-wide setting. So I have that turned off by default, but you can actually, forcefully turn that on. And based on maybe some situations here, you can increase the contrast for somebody for something. Okay, so interesting features baked into the Safari there. This particular one just kind of, this mode here just kind of adds some outlines to your content, so you can kind of see how outlines and things are laid out in the page. Okay, and this paintbrush one, I think this one, I don't even remember what this paintbrush one does. Shows you how much time I even use that. Doesn't even have a tooltip to tell me what. Oh, enable paint flashing. Oh, I think that's for like on page load maybe. And it shows you. Oh, did you see that? It kind of showed painting as things were reflashing. Okay. I don't know how to explain that one to you, so we'll just go ahead and forget that. All right. Next up. I thought those were kind of interesting. I thought this accessibility one was interesting. There's a couple other things. You'll start to notice inside the inspector. Let's make this text a little bit bigger for you guys. It doesn't really make sense on the HTML, but you'll notice that this tag here called scroll. Hopefully you guys can see that. If you ever been on a page and you notice, actually, let's go to a stacks page here. I haven't found one that does this yet, but let's go ahead. I'm going to go to, let's go scroll down one second. Let's go down to this. All right. So I want to see this here. All right. You ever go to a page? Now, obviously, this is Horizon right here. That's scrolling, and that's meant to scroll horizontally. Okay, it's meant to do that. However, I know we've all been on a web page where we hover over something and we notice like maybe it's like a menu or something has this horizontal scroll bar that we don't want, right? And so what's interesting is inside now, whenever an element has whenever it scrolls horizontally, um, I've noticed some false positives on the HTML. So I've noticed on most web pages it actually has it there, even though there is no scrolling going on. But obviously, this horizon, it's meant to scroll because that's what the stack does. But a lot of times what you can do is you can actually identify an element that has that scroll that maybe shouldn't, right? And we can tell by having this little scroll tag right there inside the DOM, which is pretty cool. Okay. I see a question here. How did I attach the iPhone to my Mac? I just plugged in my lightning cable from my phone into my Mac. That's it. I didn't do anything fancy. Okay. So for Lucio Villa, that's what I did. Okay. So that's an interesting feature right there, the scroll. Okay. Next one is, let's go ahead and let's look at, let's go to the top. All right. Some font stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and let's look at this font right here, this H1 on the page. In the inspector, we can go to font now. Okay. And there's some new properties here. First off, it tells us the name of the font. Okay. This particular one, I'm loading it from Hoffler, and they actually don't give me the name of the font. Okay. That's just, yeah. But if you were loading it traditionally, it would actually have the name of the font there. Okay. And what is interesting here is it shows us the size, the style, the exact weight, and stretch meaning the character width. Okay. If we are using any or sort of really fancy ligature, we're not going to dive into ligatures and all these other font features. Okay. But something I wanted to, let's see, I obviously I don't have it on my site, but there are times, let's say, for example, I'm using a font. Let's go ahead and let's do this font here. Okay. I know for a fact that this particular font, it is loaded from Hoffler as well. My paragraph font here. And I'm loading the weight of 300. Style is normal. Okay. Now, if you know fonts, you can make a font. If you want to use bold and italic versions of font, you need to load the bold and italic font files as well. And if you don't load those bold or italic font files, then the browser will attempt to take the normal weight or whatever font that it actually does have and create an italic or create a bold for us. Okay. It's like a faux rendering of the font. Let me attempt to faux render. I don't remember exactly what fonts I load on this page, but let's go ahead and let's do font dash style and let's call it italic. And dang it, I am loading the italic version of this particular font. Let's do font weight 700. 600. Okay. I think this is a variable font, so it's not going to do it for us. And I think it actually only does it for I think from what I read, it only does it on style. I need to find a font that I think my menu font. All right, let's go to my menu font. And I think I'm not loading italic. Okay, so let's do font. Oops, what am I doing here? Font dash style italic. Yes, cool. Okay, awesome. So here, this font, if you notice, this particular events, the browser made it look italic. Okay, however, I'm actually not loading the italic version of this particular font on my web page. Okay, so I've made this font by italic with CSS, but if we look in the browser, it's saying the style is italic, but I have a little warning here. And that's because what that means is when you see the warning here, the browser is full rendering that italic font. Okay, it would do the same thing for bold. If we weren't loading a bold version of the font, it would show you a warning here saying that the browser is synthesizing that bold font because you haven't actually loaded the correct version of that font of bold or italic. Okay, so this is a really cool thing. This is new in Safari 17. Okay, and it's pretty cool if we want to start debugging fonts and whatnot, because definitely it is kind of prior. It was unknown whether or not the browser was rendering some things properly sometimes, and this kind of gives us some better indication whether or not the browser is actually properly loading the italic versus the normal font. So a small thing, I think, but pretty big for font debugging. So there we go. Okay, guys, I'm now getting into the one thing that makes me sad. Okay. And actually notice, man, it's already 12:15. I've been going for 45 minutes, and this is a big new feature. Okay. So if you're familiar, I know you've seen me use it on various live streams, is responsive design mode inside Safari. Okay. Let's go back into Safari. And this makes me a little sad. So if we go to develop, we can enter responsive design mode. And this makes me sad because if you remember prior versions of Safari, there was a nice little icons for various devices. You can click on those devices and this preview would just magically kind of morph to that size. And while it wasn't perfect, it wasn't exactly like, loading it onto an iPhone. It was good. Like it was just a great way of quickly checking various layouts and sizing and stuff like that for that particular sized screen. And it's gone. Right? So now we have this little UI where we can go ahead and dynamically resize. And you can resize and you can go ahead and you can type in values, right? But it was so good before. Like, why did they have to mess with that? Like, I don't know what an iPhone is now, right? I don't know the dimensions off the top of my head. It was nice just clicking on the iPhone or the iPad icon and getting that size, So frustrating. Now, why did Apple do this? Because in their minds, that wasn't correct. We were getting potentially some false security that because I looked at I clicked on the iPhone icon and previewed this site on what it would look like on an iPhone 15, that when on an actual iPhone 15 it would look perfect. And that necessarily isn't the case, right? As I talked about before. So what is the solution? What's the new alternative? Okay, and you'll probably see this new button here called Open in Simulator. Now, this feature is what took me multiple hours to get working. And it was, I got it working. I think I know the steps that I did to get it working, because at some point you just kind of do stuff, and as you all know, you just kind of start changing some things or modifying this or that to get things working, and magically it works, and you're not exactly sure exactly what the one thing you did that fixed it. But I'm pretty certain I know what I did that fixed it, and I'll show you guys. But let's go ahead and say I want to open up this web page on an iPhone 15 Plus. I can go ahead and click on that. And what that will do is that will open up. And actually, oh, look, it actually opened up multiple simulators for some reason. So it is now loading up an actual native iPhone 15 simulator. And look at that. It actually works now. This was not working last night. So, cool. So there we go. So now I have this website running in an actual iOS 15 simulator, iOS 15 plus, running iOS 17.0, right? So I can now truthfully verify that this will work identically here versus on an actual iPhone. So this is their solution. I still like the idea of having at least the cursory, let me click on this to quickly like take 2 seconds versus, that what took like 20 seconds to load this simulator, right? And now if I want to check it on an iPad, guess what? I need to open up another simulator, right? So let's go ahead and run this on an iPad Air 5th gen. And in order to do that, we need to wait for this simulator to load. Actually, I haven't loaded up this particular one, so there it goes. Oh, interesting. It did launch a little faster. Okay. And so again, this is now on a it behaves exactly as if it was a native iPad Air Gen 5 running iOS 17.0. And we working with these now, one thing I don't like about these is you can't just scroll like I have a trackpad. You can't scroll like a web page. You actually have to click and kind of flick as if you're pretending you have a finger, right? I find that just kind of annoying. But so this is good and bad. I mean, I agree that having this simulator integration is very cool. But I still miss just the really quick, let me get an idea of how this is going to work on an iPad versus an iPhone screen. This was good enough for like 80%. And then, this maybe we then use simulators on like at the very end when we want to do like final testing and crossing our T's and dotting our I's, we can then load it in a simulator. But yeah, sadly, it doesn't work like that. Now, actually, one thing I hadn't tested. So if we go ahead and here, I'm gonna go off the cuff here really quick. I'm just curious before I show you how I got all that simulator stuff working. Curious on how, if we can preview in a simulator, we should be able to. So let's load up. It's just a really simple web page, but let's load this in preview. Let's go develop, enter responsive design mode. And I want to open this up in my 15 plus. There it is. All right, it does work. All right, so it does work with preview, which is nice. And if you attended last week and you learned how to the coolness with MAMP and all that stuff, then yeah, we can then use all of those sites locally with simulator as well, which is nice. That reminds me, for any of you guys that saw last week, I said that MAMP, I was trying to get a discount code. They got back to me today. They said they're willing to give out a 20% discount code to everybody. Yet they actually didn't send me the discount code. So they are going to be sending me a 20% off discount code. It took them like 3 weeks to get that to me. So eventually, hopefully we will get a 20% discount code. Okay. Back to simulator. How do we get the simulator? And it's a little annoying. Okay, I will admit. Because what you need to do is, now for me, I already had Xcode installed. But first things first, you're going to have to go to the App Store. And you're going to have to download and install Xcode on your system. Okay. And that's big. It takes up many gigabytes of stuff, right? So go to Xcode and you'll have to install Xcode. It is free, right? That is Apple's developer technology. Okay. And with Xcode comes all of the simulators. So you'll have to download it and install that. Now, let's go ahead and go into how do we actually get this working. One thing you notice in this opening with simulator, at the very bottom, it says add simulators. If you click on that, it actually takes you to a documentation page on Apple's website. on how to do what I'm about to show you. Okay. And I'm going to go a little bit more in depth because, as I said, I read this like 10 times yesterday, and I think it might be missing some steps, or there's some things that the workflow isn't finite yet because I had to do one thing in particular to get it working. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and close these windows. I'm going to move them off so that I don't lose them here. All right. I don't need RapWeaver. All right. So here's my simulators. Let's go ahead and close these. I don't need these right now. I'm going to go ahead and launch Xcode. Sometime today, Xcode. All right. So when you install Xcode, basically what you're going to want to do first, you're going to go to Xcode preferences and go to platforms. Okay. And by default, you'll already have macOS. If you're going to want the iOS simulators, that's iPad and iPhone. You're going to want to, there's going to be an install button here, and you're going to click install. And this will load in all iOS 17 devices. As of right now, it's iOS 17. In the future, it could be more, right? And then if you wanted to do watchOS or tvOS, you can do that as well. Okay. However, as for fun, I did download everything, even though I don't really develop for watchOS or tvOS. I was interested to see what would show up here. Only iOS stuff shows up inside Safari. Okay, so there we go. There's that. If you want to load older versions of a platform, you can go ahead and click this plus button, and we can go ahead and load older versions of iOS. So if you want to load different versions of iOS, you can do that. And it tells you how big it is here. Each one's about 6 gigabytes a piece. Okay. So if you want to load iOS 16, if you want to have iOS 15, you can do that. And I think if you need anything older than this, I think if you actually go to developer.apple.com and sign up for a developer account, you can actually download potentially older versions of iOS, I believe. I could be wrong there. Okay. So, but that's not it. So once you install this, we're not done yet. That'll take a while to download. Okay. It was almost 8 gigabytes just for the iOS devices and all their simulators. You can close your preferences now in Xcode. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to go to Window, and we're going to go to Devices and Simulators. And again, this is in the window menu of Xcode. And this will load this particular screen. Now, I have my iPhone connected because I was showing you earlier, it is connected via USB, but that doesn't matter. We're going to go ahead and click on the Simulators tab. And what you'll see here is we have a bunch of simulators installed. And these are what we need. Now, by default, all of these, some of these are installed by default. Okay. I installed this iPhone 14 Pro manually. Let me show you how I did that. So if we click on, by default right now, it loaded all these iPhone 15s, iPhone SE, and all of these iPads. Those were installed by default. And then as a test, I loaded in this iPhone 14 Pro. And we do that by, at the bottom, you can go ahead and click plus. And then you can go ahead and pick which device you would like to load. So if we want to test on an iPhone 8, and well, I need more runtimes. An iPhone 8 doesn't run iOS 17, I guess. iPhone XS. Okay, let's say I want to load an iPhone XS running iOS 17. If I downloaded more versions of iOS, I can then pick which version of iOS I wanted. Okay, let's go ahead and create that. I now have an iPhone XS here. And you might think, cool, once I have everything loaded in simulators, it'll all just show up here in Safari, right, Joe? No, at least it didn't for me. Okay, and this is where I was for multiple hours yesterday. So how did I get them to actually show up here? Okay, what I needed to do And I'm out of all the things I did, I'm relatively sure this is exactly what it was. Okay. So buried inside the Xcode app is this app called Simulator. Okay. And let's go ahead and let's do show and finder. And it is actually, it's inside of the Xcode app. Okay. So if we go Xcode, contents, developer, applications, simulator. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and let's quit simulator. So I had launched it. Now, luckily I knew this app existed because I've actually used simulator to test websites in the past. Okay, this simulator isn't a new thing. It's been around for a very, very long time. Okay, I think I've probably shown it on videos in the past as like a very advanced thing. But when you launch simulator, okay, you can go ahead and say like file, open simulator, and then you can pick from all the various simulators that you have open. Okay. Now, how do you get to this app? Some of you might not know that. Let's go ahead and explic you that. Okay. So we're going to go into applications. We're going to scroll all the way down to Xcode. We're going to right click on it and we're going to say show package contents. We're going to say contents, applications. Oh, wait, no, developer applications. And there it is. Okay. And then you're going to open this up. And at that point, you could go file, open simulator, and then open a simulator. Doesn't matter which one. Now, once I did that, and once I quit Safari, quit Xcode, and relaunched everything, then at that point, did everything start showing up in Safari. Okay, so there we go. Let's go ahead and let's go into, oops, that was inspector. So develop, responsive design mode. So at that point, once I launched an actual simulator from my Mac, again, it's kind of interesting. I'm glad that I did this. This is a new Mac with a new install. I'd never opened up simulator before on this Mac, but I have on my laptop. So I'm lucky that I kind of ran into this because I feel a lot of people that have never ran Xcode or never ran simulator before in the past may have this issue. Okay, so I'm glad that I ran into this and I'm glad that I was able to figure it out for you guys. Okay, Willie asked, what about Android devices? So Willie, that is possible. Okay. Android actually does have a developer studio. What's it called? I actually have it loaded on my laptop because I was actually doing some stuff. Actually, for my son was in high school robotics and they were using Androids. So I actually loaded it and they have an entire simulator system as well. Obviously, that won't integrate with Safari. And it's probably outside of the scope of what I'm going to do in this video. That's even a bigger cluster F than this is. Okay. This actually does work once it's working. It's actually nice, and the iOS simulators they look good. They're easy to use. Android, not so much. Okay. But maybe in the future, if you guys would like, I know I've already ran up our hour's time. Maybe in the future we can look at loading that. Maybe I can load it up fresh and clean on this Mac Studio for testing. But yeah, that's a completely different ball of wax. Not something that this particular instance covers. This only covers Apple's devices. So only iPads, iPhones, and whatnot. Okay, so good question though, Willie. Thank you. Xcode is huge and it takes so long to install. Yes, it does. So yeah, if you want this new simulator stuff, that is what you have to do. Okay. So I did go ahead and here, let's show you. If we go to hold on. Let me find the URL here. here, I'll put this in the chat. It is, oh, okay. Is it going to prompt me on my watch? Come on. Prompt me on my watch. There it goes. Man, that was slow. Okay. So feedbackassistant.apple.com. Funny enough, right here is a bug report that I filed last night because I couldn't get any of this working. And then I updated it with, hey, I got it working. This is what I did. Okay. I would say if you missed the old responsive design mode, go ahead and let them know. Because yeah, I told him as well. I was like, hey, this new simulator things, it's cool. Okay. I mean, it's not necessarily new. It's only the integration inside Safari that's new. Right. And I do like that. I think it's interesting for those that need it. But I think just having the simple tabs, man, that was nice. It was convenient. It was fast. And yes, it wasn't exactly the same as loading it into a native phone or iPad, but it got me really close a lot of times, you know? And I think that's unfortunate. I'm still sad about it. I haven't gotten over it. And I do hope that I will be a proponent to get Apple to go ahead and add that back. I hope. Or they'll just completely ignore me, which is definitely possible as well. When you preview and wrapper, you can tell it which Safari profile to use. That is a great question. I'm going to assume. Let me. Oh, I closed it, didn't I? Let's go file. Wait, no. Let's open up Sandbox really quick. New file, new dev window. Okay. So now I have a dev window and this window. All right. I'm going to guess whichever is like the top one is what's going to happen. Okay, so let's go ahead and preview. All right. So now it's that previewed in my personal one. Let's go to the dev one. I'm going to make that the most recent window. Let me go preview. Yep. So it uses the most recent. If we do Option Command P, I doubt. Yeah, it's just going to load up. There's no way to choose a profile here. Interesting question. It looks like it uses whatever the most recent window is. So if your current most recent window is a personal window, it will use that. If it's your dev window or whatever you call it, it will use that. Now, can I go ahead and take this and move it into here? I can. That's interesting. I wonder if it like moves all the website data with it. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. What happens when I take a tab from the developer and move it over here? I don't know. Another thing that is, I think this was added previous. Where was it? Oh, so I didn't know this until I was playing around and kind of surfing around Safari. I don't think this is new in Safari 17. Okay, but if you have a website open and you go to Safari, you can have settings specific for a website. So you can go ahead and set up a lot of this stuff. So you can say use reader, enable content blockers, all kinds of stuff. So you can customize the settings on a per website basis, which is interesting. I forgot about that. That was something interesting. All right, let's see if there was anything else. Steven says, replace the preset sizes with a sticky note on the side of your monitor. Oh, Jesus. I laugh because that's actually a good solution, but such a sad one that we might have to do, right? Oh, man. Ugh. All right, let's see what else. I like the simulator. Yes. I'm still on RapWeaver 8. Yes, I am. I still use RapWeaver 8.9.3. Okay. So I'm waiting for Stacks Pro to ship. I will not be supporting RapWeaver Elements. So there we go. In case anyone here did not know that. Okay, guys, I think that that about does it for today. Hopefully you learned something a little bit. I think there's a lot of cool stuff. I did save that last one for last because it does bum me out. But it's kind of like a bittersweet. Like it's a cool new feature that they added, but I don't care for ripping out the responsive design mode stuff that we used to have. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little bit, and sweet. Hope to see you guys on the Hangout on Friday. Okay. It is 1 hour from now, but on Friday we do open Hangouts. They're really cool. They are on Zoom. They're live. They're fun, and whatnot. So cool, guys. Have a great rest of your week. I'm actually working on Share It 2, or actually Share It 3.0. Okay. I know I showed off Bentu last week, and or wait, no. Well, I showed it off last week at the Hangout, not during the live stream, and it's cool, but I think it's going to need a little bit more work. So yeah, I wanted to get something out by the end of the month, so I'm trying to get Share It 3.0 out. So I've been working a lot. Well, mostly Monday. Yesterday, Sonoma kind of threw me off, so I didn't get to work on it much yesterday. But the rest of today, I'll be working on Share It 3.0, and hopefully we'll see you on the community. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Go out there and make your websites great. Bye.